The Stolen Lake by Joan Aiken, 12. Dido and Captain Hughes talked their heads off all the way across the mountains. What a naffy idea, Captain. A flying machine. How in the world did you ever come to hit on it? Was that how you got out of prison? But how'd you ever make it? He said. As you know, I've always been interested in aerial appliances and such things. I had considered for a long time whether a device might not be constructed by means of which, if a person were able to commence his flight from some lofty eminence, say a tower or a mountainside. But how did you ever manage to make it in prison? Very fortunately, all the facilities were at hand. Materials, drawing implements, besides a skilled and willing helper. But, Miss Twite, I must delay no longer in telling you how creditable, exceedingly creditable indeed, are the accounts of your behavior during this expedition that I have received from... You had a helper in prison. Who was that, then? In point of fact, I had two companions during that period of my confinement. One of them, that dismal fellow Brandywind, I found to be wholly ineffectual, a wretched milksop, but the other, the man David Llewellyn, known as Silver Taffy to his companions, though a shocking rogue in many ways, proved a most proficient assistant. Silver Taffy was in jail too? Did he escape as well? Why, yes. I do not know where he has got to now, however. I believe his intentions were to enter the city of Bath in disguise. He also undertook to look after poor Brandywind, though I did wonder whether his intentions in that respect were wholly straightforward and trustworthy, said the captain, sounding a little doubtful for the first time. We had to strap Brandywind into his aerial floater with great care, since he had lost the power of his hands. So what use he could be to Silver Taffy, I fail to see. But is it not a capital device? Inventor's pride swept away his doubts. Made of silk, you see, stretched over cane struts. I shall take out a patent when I return to England. What do you think of the Owen Hughes Patent Aerial Floater as a title? That sounds first-rate, Cap. You'll make a fortune. So you jumped out of the windows of the Pendragon Tower and floated away. Then what happened? Why, hearing from Mr. Multiple that you and King Mabon's daughter had been recaptured by Queen Ginevra, who I am shocked to discover is a wholly discreditable personage, I shall indite a memorandum to His Majesty's government on the strongest terms as soon as I am back aboard the Thrush. You heard from Mr. Multiple? Dido's voice almost cracked with wonder and joy. But I thought he was dead. No, I understand that he was on the point of being assassinated. Some villains were about to toss him into an underground chasm when he, very fortunately, recollected that he had a considerable quantity of diamonds about his person. By bribing his assailants with these, they were persuaded to release him, and so he was enabled to make good his escape. Croupas, am I pleased to hear about that, said Dido. Her position was becoming very uncomfortable indeed, as they floated along the valley between the two huge shoulders of Mount Catalonde on one side, and Calabi on the other. The captain had contrived to pass a leather strap around her, under her armpits, and had buckled this to bevels on the understruts of his aerial floater, so that she was tolerably safe, but the strap cut cruelly into her shoulders. Still, the good news about Mr. Multiple made her able to disregard such discomfort with ease. She asked, Where'd you come across Mr. Mully, then? I met him in the mountains. He seemed to have retraced his way from the cave where he was nearly murdered, purchased a peasant's llama with his last small diamond, and was journeying to Lyonese City to inform King Mabon of the princess's recapture. Good old Multiple. Those diamonds came in real handy. I guess he got there too late to stop King Mabon sending back the lake. Still, at least they know about the princess. They'll be out after her by now. I dare say they will have encountered her by this time, said Captain Hughes. When I met her... You met her too? How in the name of Nordens did you do that? If you would not keep interrupting, Miss Twite, I might be enabled to recount a consecutive narrative, said Captain Hughes. Sorry, Cap. You go right on. Where'd you meet Ellen? Was she all rug? Was she still riding old Leper? I was informed by Mr. Multiple, said the captain, who had learned it by listening to the conversation of his captors, that your ultimate destination, and that of the princess, was the city of Sol, where you were to be thrown into the lake. Most disgraceful procedure. I shall write another memorandum about that to HM government, since the matter appeared. One of extreme urgency, I directed my course toward that location, having a very tolerable recollection of its whereabouts due to my careful study of the map of New Cumbria. Yes, and then what? I was steering a course north westwards. One can direct these aerial floaters with admirable facility and precision hereabouts, owing to the abundance of volcanoes emitting convective thermal currents into the atmosphere. I dare say it might not be quite so easy in Britain, said Captain Hughes, a certain melancholy entering his voice as he recollected the scarcity of volcanoes on that island. You were steering northwestwards, Cap, yes, and then? Why, then I observed a young lady scuttling across the countryside at a remarkably fast pace upon a snow leopard. This, as you know, is a beast of considerable rarity and zoological interest, which hitherto has been believed to be a resident only of the Eastern Hemisphere, especially in Central Asia, where it is found in some profusion. Even young Mr. Darwin failed to discover its presence in these regions, so I shall take considerable pleasure in writing a report to the Royal Society. You saw Ellen riding on Happy Patchy? Did you talk to her? Indeed, yes. She, not unnaturally, was somewhat amazed at being hailed by a voice from the Empyrean, and so was her mount. Indeed, she had some ado in pacifying him. Apparently he took me for an auroch, for which creatures it seems he has an intense aversion, said Captain Hughes, sounding a little ruffled as he recalled the episode. Dido chuckled. She wished she had been there to see it. You talked to Ellen? The Princess of Lyonesse, replied Captain Hughes repressively, was so good as to inform me of the practical sense and unselfishness, I may go so far as to say heroism, Miss Twite, which has distinguished your conduct, of how you planned this means of escape for her, and urged her to avail herself of it. I shall certainly indite a note to H.M. Oh, bother the note! Do you suppose Ellen got to Lyonesse all right and tight? I should judge so, replied the captain, since the foothills which remained for her to cross presented no particular hazards and were wholly unpopulated, so far as I could judge from my aerial viewpoint. I was considerably exercised in my mind over conflicting duties at that point. I must confess some would say that I should have escorted the princess to her father, but since she appeared perfectly capable of continuing unescorted, whereas your plight, as far as I could judge, was more perilous. It was a right near squeak, agreed Dido. I sure thought I was a goner. I'm real grateful to you, Captain Hughes. I'd never have thought I'd be so pleased to see you, and I'll never bother your spyglass again without asking. I beg your pardon? So what's the plan now? Pursued Dido. Mr. Multiple also informed me, though I could hardly believe my own ears, that Holystone, that my own steward, has been acknowledged by several persons of repute, including King Mabon of Lyonesse, as the returned or reborn prince of these regions, Mercurius Artaeus Ambrosius, and the husband of Queen Ginevra of New Cumbria. Yes, that's so, agreed Dido sadly, wondering, however, if Captain Hughes would call the old guardian a person of repute. If this is so, it is certainly my duty to H.M. government to report on such a state of affairs and discover what occurs when the personages concerned encounter one another. You mean when Holystone meets the Queen? If a change of government is indicated, said the captain, H.M. should know about it. After all, New Cumbria is our oldest ally. I dare say Mr. Holystone will go to Bath quite soon. Dido's tone was glum. She added, but we better not get there before him, or dear knows what the Queen will do to us. I saw her a couple of days ago, Captain. She's in a real rum state, all trembly, and eyes like bits of looking-glass. You couldn't trust her not to fly right off the handle. The only person she seems to pay heed to is that there Bran, and he was over in Lyonesse. Well, I dare say that King Mabon and Holystone, or Artaeus, or as I suppose one should designate him, will lose no time in sending an expeditionary force to Bath. Once they are assured of the safety of the princess, I learned from the man Silver Taffy that in Lyonesse there are a large number of malcontents from the kingdom of High Brazil, escaped from the tyrannical regime there, who may well rally under the leadership of holy Artaeus. If you recall, he informed us that he was brought up in that country. He certainly better not go back to Bath without taking some pals with him, Dido said thoughtfully. It's my belief that it was the witcheries of those old hags, Etarde and the others, that made him sick when he went there before. I reckon they didn't want him back, because then the Queen mightn't pay such heed to them. And when he does go back, you never know, the Queen herself might take a dislike to him." "The reality might disappoint her," agreed the captain, "having cherished a figment in her imagination for so long." "What's a figment, Cap? Hey, look down there!" They had come gliding round the shoulder of Mount Damiac, and were now floating in icy darkness above the stony upland saucer of plain that surrounded Bath Regis. Away in the distance, Mount Catalonde glowed and coruscated. Closer to hand, Mount Damask seemed to have caught the contagion and was shooting a vertical stream of sparks up into the black heavens to join the cold, glittering stars that spread a spangled canopy there. And down below on the plain, like a reflection of the Milky Way, a brilliant procession of lights wound slowly in the direction of Bath. "I bet that's King Mabon and Mr. Holy," cried Dido joyfully. "Shall us go down and see?" "We had better exercise considerable caution," said the captain. "Firstly, if they are coming from Lyonesse, they are taking a singular route. One would have assumed they would go through the path of Nemoun and be approaching from the other direction." "Aye, that's true." In fact, as they subsequently discovered, King Mabon's troop had made use of a secret smuggler's route through the silver mines revealed to them by Bran. "Secondly, if we take them by surprise, they may open fire, believing us to be Aurochs." Fortunately, this misadventure did not occur when, by the captain's skillful direction of his floater, he and Dido were hovering almost directly above the marching column. She was able to recognize the eagle standard of the Wandesboro Frontier Patrol, and she hailed them shrilly from overhead. "Hey, Sextus Lucius Trevelyan! Have you got Mr. Holystone with you? I mean King Artaeus and the folk from the Thrush." Some natural surprise was caused by the voice apparently addressing them from heaven, and the more superstitious soldiers in Captain Trevelyan's troop fell flat on their stomachs, but Captain Hughes was now low enough to recognize the familiar face of Lieutenant Windward, riding with Mr. Multiple in the rear of the advance guard, and so he brought his floater to the ground, exclaiming briskly, "There you are, Windward. I'm devilish glad to see you again, sir. I have with me Miss Twite, who I'm pleased to say I have been able to extricate from captivity." The whole procession came to a halt amid cries of joyful recognition and congratulations. "Miss Twite, Dido, thank God you are safe. Who would have thought of encountering you here? Bless my soul, Missy, we thought you was at Kingdom Come." Let's do that voice again. "Miss Twite, Dido, thank God you are safe. Who would have thought of encountering you here? Bless my soul, Missy, we thought you was at Kingdom Come." That was Noah Gusset. "Gadzooks, Miss Twite, I am delighted to find you at liberty, and Captain Hughes, too." That was Lieutenant Windward. Mr. Multiple fairly hugged Dido in his joy and relief. "I'm real sorry about the diamonds," she whispered to him. "Oh, never mind it. The princess got back safe to her father. Here she comes now, in fact." King Mabon, riding in the rear, sent forward to learn the cause of the stoppage, and, being informed what it was, now hurried forward with his daughter and Mr. Holystone. They were all mounted on Patagonian ponies, but Dido observed that Happy Paca, whose devotion to the princess had apparently remained unimpaired despite being ridden by her across country, kept close at the heels of her pony, causing the latter no little uneasiness, and snarling if anyone chanced to come what he considered unsuitably near his mistress. King Mabon hopped off his pony and came to give Dido an unaffected hug. So did his daughter. "Oh, I was so wretched about you," said Ellen. "All the way over the mountains I was thinking I should never have let you persuade me." "Anything you want, child, in the kingdom of Lyonesse is yours indeed, for goodness," said King Mabon. "Oh, it weren't nothing," said Dido gruffly. "Arter all, what else was there to do?" Mr. Holystone was standing quietly beside Ellen. A whole ring of torches now surrounded the group, and in the flickering light Dido saw that he was very grandly dressed, indeed, in a red tunic, gold-bordered toga, sparkling diadem, and sandals with gold buckles. Caliburn hung at his side in a silver-studded scabbard, but he looked surprisingly much more like the old Mr. Holystone, and his voice, when he spoke, confirmed this. "I am very happy to see you alive, Miss Twite. Pray, ma'am, from which tradesman did you obtain your tea?" "Oh, Mr. Holy, you remembered me! Oh, that beats cockfighting!" Dido cried out joyfully. She was so happy that her spirits could hardly rise higher when, Artaeus, too, gave her a welcoming embrace and kiss on the cheek. Her delight was so profound that she thought, "Now I don't care what happens." Well, Sir King Artaeus," Captain Hughes was saying, somewhat awkwardly. "This is a bit of a change, eh? "I shall always remember, Captain, the kind treatment I received as your steward," Mr. Holystone said. "When did your memory come back, Mr. Holy?" cried Dido. "When did it all come together?" "Quite suddenly, about 12 hours ago. It was as if a shutter clicked open in my mind. I remembered the thrush and how you used to cut curls of coconut for me." Some influence had been blocking his mind and was suddenly removed. Let's try that voice again. "Some influence that had been blocking his mind was suddenly removed," said Bran, appearing with his usual unexpectedness. "Yes, you old schoolmaster," said Holystone, clapping him cheerfully on the back. "But what influence?" "That we shall no doubt discover when we reach Bath." As dawn was approaching, King Mabon now suggested that they should halt and take breakfast where they were, in order to arrive at Bath tolerably rested and refreshed, since nobody had any idea what kind of reception might be waiting for them there. Accordingly, fires were lit, wine was mulled, yams thrust into embers to roast, and sausages toasted on sticks. Dido, who was ravenous after her day's solitary confinement and starvation in the city of Seoul, could hardly bear to wait for the food to be ready. "Was he very angry, the old guardian, when he found I was gone?" inquired Ellen, coming to sit by Dido on a folded toga. "That he was, poor old Whiskers." "When you are gone, I'll cry all day. My tears will wash my feet away," sang Bran, coming to lower himself on the ground beside the girls. "Mr. Bran, why do you think Mr. Holy got his memory back?" Dido asked. "I expect we shall discover that one of the people attempting to prevent his return suddenly lost the power to do so." "Why should that happen?" Bran shrugged. "In several ways. We shall see soon enough, no doubt." When they resumed the march, Bran rode alongside the two girls. Dido would have liked a long conversation with Mr. Holystone. There was so much she wanted to ask him, but she could quite see that he had a lot of important affairs to discuss with King Mabon and Captain Hughes. Bits of their conversation came floating back. Decent intelligence in High Brazil, abolish practice of head shrinking, joint action to exterminate the Aurochs, improve conditions in the silver mines. "Bran," said Dido, "do you think Queen Ginevra will let him do all those things? I reckon she quite likes those shrunken heads." "Who can tell?" "I'd have thought you could. Can't you tell the future?" "After a fashion, yes, I can. But if you recall, I can do nothing to affect it. Only continue to remind people that free will exists." "What's free will, Mr. Bran?" "In Bath's happy city, where the girls are so pretty, how free was my will as I free-wheeled along. Why, even a sparrow can choose broad or narrow, and a man can choose daily between right and wrong," sang Bran. "You'll never get a sensible answer out of him," said the princess. "Not when he's in this mood." "Bran," said Dido, "how come you knew Miss Vavasour so well?" The princess looked doubtfully at Bran, as if wondering how he would take such a personal question, but he answered readily enough. "Why, who should know her better than I? I was married to her for 500 years or so. Sweet Nimue, dear Nineveh. And to show her wifely affection, she threw me into an enchantment and shut me up under a stone, rather like you, princess, but for a deal longer." "You were married to Nineveh? Then are you sorry she's dead?" "Of course I am. You can't be married to somebody and not have some feeling for them, however wicked they may be or how badly they treat you." Ellen rode in silence for a long time after this exchange, and we will pause there.